filled up with a word. We can take a nothing day and brighten it up with a tale unheard, 'cause we're learning and knowing and growing, with welcoming words overflowing. You know it. Come along with me, let's read together. Come along, let's see what's new together. Come join us in the welcome word. Come join us in the welcome word.
Good morning. Welcome to Welcome Word. Today we're going to be talking about nature and climate, and it's a beautiful day to do that because it's going to be 74 degrees today. So let's begin. I'm going to start with some children's books, and I want to thank the Green Team for donating this lovely book to our library. It's written by Justice Alan Page and his daughter, Cammie. And it tells a story about a boy who is afraid of bee stings and how he learns how bees are so important to our environment. Next we have a lovely book about birds. Now, I love birds, so I had to pick this one out, and it's by Kevin Henkes. It's just a sweet, charming book about a girl and looking out her window and watching birds. Next we have two books about the rainforest. This book is a little bit more elementary, but it's gorgeous. And this one also goes into the rainforest. Tells about the wonderful animals that you'll see there, the climate that you'll see there, how the animals behave and work together. And what happens is the story here is a woodcutter comes out and he wants to trim in the forest. And as he dreams, he learns all about the forest and wants to preserve it. Now, this is one of my favorite books. It's a fun book. It's called Terrific Tongues. And it's about animals that have tongues. If you have a tongue like a washcloth, you might be this animal. If you have tongues like a zipper, you might be a different kind of animal. But you know, you'll have to read this book because there is an animal that has two tongues. The earth that God made, it talks about the beginning of the earth, telling the story of Genesis for children. And we have D for dolphin. And as I open the book, you'll notice it's all in blue, just like a dolphin would be swimming in this blue water. And then at the very end, it gives us some excellent information about how dolphins live and communicate. The next stories I have is we're going to go into I would say probably about third grader. It's one a third grader could read alone, or it's a book that the family could read together and enjoy. It's called A Wolf Called Wander, and it happens to be historical fiction because there was a wolf that was OR7 that was traced back, and he went around and for 1,000 miles in the Pacific Northwest. What happened was that his family ran up against a pack of wolves that were stronger than they, and his family scattered, and there was this wolf named Swift, and Swift tells the story. This book is probably more for, I would say, maybe late elementary into junior high. It's Alan Kratz's new book called 2 Degrees, and it traces the story of 4 teenagers. Akira, who lives in California, Owen and Joshua, who live in Canada, and Natalia, who lives in Miami. Now what's happening is their climate is changing. Forests, fires, the polar bears and are coming closer to the to where people live, and of course hurricanes. I love this book because it's told in short chapters, and each chapter keeps you hanging on to what's going to be next. The name 2 Degrees came from the idea that what would happen if each of these places increased their normal temperature by 2 degrees. Let's continue on with a beautiful video. This one is called Planet Earth, and it was a BBC video. It comes in 5 different discs, and it explores our lovely Earth through animals and nature, in forests, in deserts, in ice covered, in the equator with hot climate. It is totally beautiful, and I think you'll enjoy it very much. The next couple of books about nature that I have is more creation type of books. This one is written by our own Bev Gillen, and it's called The Gift of Green Time, 50 Ways for Families to Connect Through Nature. This is a book that you'll want to take with you and open up many times, a book that you can explore and just look at with your children. 50 places that Bev has found in all different climates, all different seasons, and ways that you can explore our beautiful Minnesota together. And this one is a very interesting one. This is all about nature prints. And it starts with very simple nature prints that you can make with a child. And if you get kind of caught up and enjoy nature prints, ones that you'll want to make yourself. There are different papers to use. And one example in the book is that one I did when I was teaching kindergarten. It was a paper that was blue, and you put objects on the paper and put it in the sunlight, and you lifted up the paper for, maybe you kept it out there, I can't remember, it depends upon the sun, but it was maybe an hour, and you lifted up the image off the paper, and you made a beautiful print. You'll really love exploring this book. Now the next nature books I have are memoirs about nature. And we're going to start with Lab Girl. Lab Girl would always visit her father and work with her father at night on Earth and geological ideas. And what's interesting about this book is that she grew up in Minnesota in a small town where her father taught earth sciences. And from that time on, she has loved working in labs. And it's a story about her discoveries, a story about a very special relationship that she has with a co-worker. And it was actually recommended to me by one of my very best friends. This one is called Serve God, Save the Planet. It's written by a doctor, Dr. Matthew Sleeth. And Dr. Matthew Sleeth had just probably the best life you could have. He was a doctor, he was well paid, he lived in a beautiful house, and everything that was just great. But he was noticing, especially in the ER, where people were coming in with different diseases. And he was thinking, why is this happening? And why is our earth changing? So what happened was he and his wife sold his house, moved into a very modest house. He gave up his job, and he has gone on talking in many tours about faith and our climate. This one is called Breeding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. It's written by Robin Wall Kimmerer, And you might know her first book was called Gathering Moss. It's an indigenous look at nature and how you go out and appreciate it. There's some folklore in here, some stories, indigenous stories, but it all comes down to using the earth in the way it was meant to be used. Yes, you can use the earth for what you need, like for planting, but only take as much as you need and keep encouraging and replenishing. Beautiful, beautiful book. Now this one happens to be one of my favorites, called The Honey Bus. The Honey Bus is also a memoir by Meredith May. And what happened in Meredith's life was that when she was very young, about 5 or 6 years old, her parents divorced. Her mother became very depressed, couldn't take care of her, so she went to live with her grandparents. And when she got to her grandparents' house, there was this old yellow bus in the backyard. Well, Meredith was curious, and so she tried to look inside this bus, but there were no seats in the bus. But inside the bus was this kind of a buzzy noise, and racks and racks of things, and it almost looked like beehives. Well, guess what? It was beehives. And as her father taught her about bees, it helped her also become a beekeeper, but more importantly, animals can help you get better. And our last books today are some of my very favorites. Also, I loved this book, Finding the Mother Tree. It happens to be written by a lady who was in the logging industry. So they were always taking down trees in her family, and she was so interested in trees. But you know, animals talk. We talk. So why can't trees talk? And it happens that they do. The last couple books I have this one is called Nature's Best Hope. This was actually mentioned in one of Jim Williams' bird columns about a couple of weeks ago. And it's the idea that a new approach in conservation starts in your own yard. Now, I was kind of excited about this because I love to look at really lovely landscapes, but I'm not too much of a gardener. But after I read this book, I thought, oh, I guess it's not so bad to leave a few weeds in my yard. It doesn't have to look perfect. And it really helps the animals. And Mr. Talamy also says that it's very important for animals, insects, people, trees, nature to learn to live together. And this last book is called The Bird Way. Now you might notice I had a lot of bird books because I really do love birds. And so does this lady, Jennifer Ackerman. It's about how birds talk, work, play, parent, and think. Now you think, do birds always do so many of these things? Well, yes, they're talking to each other all the time. They're playing, and I know about the parenting because I had a nest by my front door, and I couldn't even go out my front door. I had to kind of walk around and not be so visible because every time I came out, boy, that bird went right for me. And even birds think. She traveled all over to find many different birds in many different places. Well, I hope that you'll enjoy nature and that you'll be able to get out now when summer comes, that you can just go and appreciate all the beautiful things to see. And I am going to be returning this fall, and I'll have some new books for you. So actually we'll be doing our reviews quarterly. Thank you for visiting Welcome Word, and go and enjoy nature.